The Wizard of Oz is remembered as one of the most magical films in Hollywood history. A Technicolor masterpiece that transported audiences to a world of munchkins, witches, and yellow brick roads. The 1939 classic has enchanted generations for more than 8 decades. It gave us one of the most recognizable songs in cinematic history, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and turned Judy Garland into a household name. But for all its charm, The Wizard of Oz hides a much darker truth. Behind the curtain of this fantasy was a production plagued by accidents, suffering, and eerie legends that continue to haunt its legacy today. Stories of burned actors, toxic makeup, near-fatal accidents, cruel studio control, and even urban myths of ghostly figures have earned the movie a place in Hollywood's collection of cursed films. Tonight, we're pulling back the curtain on the darker side of The Wizard of Oz. This isn't the magical land of Oz you thought you knew. It's a tale of danger, exploitation, and uncanny stories that still linger like a ghost on celluloid. When MGM Studios began filming The Wizard of Oz in 1938, their goal was clear: to create the most dazzling fantasy film ever made. They poured millions into the production, a massive sum for the time, hiring the best costume designers, special effects teams, and musicians. But the desire for perfection often came at the expense of the actors. Conditions on set were grueling, with hot studio lights that baked the actors under heavy costumes. The makeup used on characters like the Tin Man and Wicked Witch of the West wasn't just uncomfortable, it was dangerously toxic. Every glittering detail, every effect, came with hidden costs that the cast paid with their health. And then there was Judy Garland, only 16 years old when she stepped into Dorothy's ruby slippers. For MGM, she was their golden child, but behind the scenes, the studio controlled every aspect of her life. Garland was placed on a strict diet of coffee, chicken soup, and cigarettes to keep her weight down. To make sure she worked the long hours demanded by the studio, she was given a cocktail of stimulants to stay awake and barbiturates to fall asleep. This brutal cycle, started during The Wizard of Oz, would follow her for the rest of her short life, contributing to her struggles with addiction and mental health until her tragic death at age 47. On screen, Judy Garland sang of hope, of a place somewhere over the rainbow, where dreams really did come true. Off-screen, she was already being ground down by the merciless Hollywood machine. One of the most infamous accidents on set involved Margaret Hamilton, the actress who played the Wicked Witch of the West. Her green skin, sinister laugh, and fiery entrances made her an unforgettable villain. But the role nearly cost her life. In the scene where the Wicked Witch disappears in a puff of smoke, Hamilton was supposed to drop through a trapdoor while fire and sparks erupted around her. But during one take, the timing went wrong. The trapdoor failed to open quickly enough, and Hamilton was caught in the middle of the flames. Her copper-based green makeup ignited, leaving her with second-degree burns on her face and third-degree burns on her hands. Hamilton was rushed to the hospital, and production carried on without her. But here's where things get especially disturbing. When she returned weeks later, still bandaged and in pain, MGM expected her to continue with little accommodation. For any shots where her hands would be visible, they covered her bandages with long green gloves. Hamilton herself later admitted that she was terrified to work with fire again. In fact, she refused to film any more scenes involving flames. Her stunt double was brought in for the riskier shots, but she too was badly injured when another fiery effect malfunctioned. The image of the Wicked Witch's power on screen masked the truth that the women behind the role were literally being burned by the production. The Wicked Witch wasn't the only one to suffer. The role of the Tin Man came with its own horrifying story. Buddy Ebsen, the original actor cast as the character, was excited to play the shiny man made of tin. But the makeup chosen for his metallic look turned out to be lethal. To create the effect, makeup artists used aluminum powder. Every time Ebsen breathed, he inhaled the fine dust, which coated his lungs. After only 10 days of filming, Ebsen collapsed and was rushed to the hospital. He spent weeks in an oxygen tent, struggling to breathe, and doctors warned that the exposure had permanently scarred his lungs. Ebsen never returned to the set. MGM replaced him with actor Jack Haley, but even the revised aluminum paste used for the role caused painful eye infections. Haley later joked that playing the Tin Man was no fun, but his health issues were no laughing matter. Imagine it. One of the most beloved children's films in history nearly killed the actor meant to bring one of its most beloved characters to life. Bert Lahr, who played the Cowardly Lion, also paid a heavy price for his role, literally wearing it on his back. The costume was made of real lion pelts, weighing nearly 90 pounds. Under the blazing heat of the studio lights, the suit became unbearably hot, and Lahr would sweat so much during filming that the costume had to be hung up overnight to dry. Reports claim that crew members joked about the smell of the costume lingering on set, but for Lahr, the reality was no joke. He endured the discomfort because, like the rest of the cast, there was no alternative. The Munchkin actors brought color and charm to the Land of Oz, but behind the scenes, their treatment was anything but magical. Paid only $50 a week, far less than Toto the dog who earned $125, the Munchkin actors were often treated more like sideshow curiosities than respected performers. Over the years, rumors swirled about their wild behavior, with tabloids exaggerating stories of drunken escapades and fights. While some accounts were blown out of proportion, the truth remains that they endured grueling work schedules for very little pay and were often dismissed as a joke by both the press and the studio. But the darkest and most persistent legend tied to the Munchkins is the infamous hanging Munchkin myth. For decades, viewers swore they could see a figure dangling from a tree in the background of one scene, suggesting that one of the actors had taken his own life during filming and the footage had been left in by accident. While Warner Brothers has since claimed that the shadowy figure is nothing more than a bird placed on the set for atmosphere, the legend refuses to die. Even today, fans freeze-frame the scene, convinced they are witnessing evidence of the film's cursed nature. Even Toto, the adorable dog who followed Dorothy down the yellow brick road, wasn't safe from the dangers of production. Played by a Cairn Terrier named Terry, Toto was injured during filming when one of the Wicked Witch's guards accidentally stepped on her paw, breaking it. Terry had to be replaced by a stand-in until she healed, though she eventually returned to finish the movie. Toto's injury may have been minor compared to the burns and lung damage suffered by her human co-stars, but it added to the long list of misfortunes that plagued the film. So why has The Wizard of Oz been labeled as cursed? Some point to the sheer number of accidents and health issues. Others focus on the tragic lives of its stars after the cameras stopped rolling. Judy Garland became a global icon, but the damage inflicted on her as a teenager never truly healed. She battled addiction, financial ruin, and mental health struggles until her tragic death in 1969, at just 47 years old. Buddy Ebsen, the first Tin Man, lived but with permanent lung damage that haunted him for years. Margaret Hamilton carried the scars from her accident, both physical and emotional. Even the legacy of the Munchkin actors was clouded by rumors, gossip, and mistreatment. To this day, fans argue whether the accidents were just bad luck or if something darker hangs over the production. Could The Wizard of Oz have been cursed? Or was it simply the inevitable outcome of a ruthless studio system that valued spectacle over safety? The Wizard of Oz remains one of the most beloved films of all time. It's quoted, parodied, and referenced across pop culture. Children still dress as Dorothy for Halloween, and the ruby slippers remain one of the most iconic props in movie history. But when you peel back the Technicolor magic, what you find is a story filled with pain, exploitation, and tragedy. A movie that taught audiences to believe in hope and home was built on a foundation of suffering. That contradiction is what makes The Wizard of Oz so haunting. For every dream it created on screen, it left behind a nightmare off-screen. Even now, more than 80 years later, the myths of curses, ghosts, and dark secrets keep the film alive in the realm of Hollywood horror stories. Perhaps that's the true curse of The Wizard of Oz, not supernatural forces, but the way Hollywood itself chewed up and scarred the people who brought its most magical story to life.